I think I stopped resisting. I stopped resisting, and I've really been a survivor my whole life. And so I think I just go into survival mode, but now we can't stay in that space anymore. And a lot of that I think came from, there's no way around the storm. There's no way around your storm, whatever that looks like for you. And I needed to figure out a way to create and navigate and like shift within what my storm was and come out on the other side. I'm a mom now, right? Like this was all I ever wanted and prayed for and spent thousands of dollars on, and then I ended up having him naturally. But, it was like I want to give my son a childhood he doesn't have to recover from.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Finding the Upside. I'm so happy you chose to join us today. I have a start of a new series I'm so excited to bring to you, focusing on women's wellness. And today in the studio, in our virtual studio, I have my special guest, Jessica Amerosa. Say hello, Jessica.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. So, before we get started, I wanted to give you all just a short introduction about Jessica, what she does, and then I'm going to turn it over to her and have her expand on her journey to tell us how she got to where she is today and what she's going to speak about. So, Jessica is a female entrepreneur who fell in love with her life at 42. She has suffered loss from multiple miscarriages to the loss of a surrogate pregnancy, and she became a first-time mom at 40.
Mhm.
She moved across the country and is relentless in her pursuit of helping other women and moms take back control of their happiness and habits through creating morning routines, focused fitness, and simple nutrition. Jessica.
Yes, that's me. Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about that journey and what brought you to where you are. I know you are developing that business. I know your background, but I'd love you to share it from your perspective of how you came to where you are.
Sure, thank you. Um, what a long journey it's been. Um, I won't go through all the details, but when I got married, married a bit later in life,
So did I.
roughly 35. And my husband and I tried to start having children right away. And um, you just don't assume anything is going to go wrong, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
friends
Yeah.
can have babies, you see all these women doing it. And so I thought it would just be a seamless process, and it was not. I had two miscarriages right away. And because of my age, when you're 35 or older, you are considered advanced maternal age. And so they do some different interventions with women who are AMA. And so I immediately was sent to a specialist at the time I lived in San Diego, California. So they sent us to Laguna Niguel, one of the top specialists in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was told that I had a unicornuate uterus, which is basically when I was forming as a baby, I only formed half of the uterus.
Mm.
And so I considered a hostile environment for having a baby. So we were referred to have IVF and use a surrogate
Mm-hmm.
without asking questions, without really advocating for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Probably I didn't know how at the time. Um, that's just the step. I took it for what it was, face value, and that is the step that we took. We went to a wonderful fertility clinic in San Diego, went through the IVF process. We did have a surrogate. Um, here's the crazy part is I got pregnant again naturally.
Mm.
Um, so but we knew I was told that I would have a 95% chance of a miscarriage
Okay.
again.
Yeah.
So we went through the process of transferring one of our embryos into our surrogate. We were completely transparent with the surrogate that I was pregnant. I was 5 weeks pregnant at the time. but we were all kind of on the same page, right? Like this pregnancy probably won't last, so
Mhm.
let's go through with this one.
Mhm.
And so we did. We transferred the embryo. It was a successful transfer. Um, and this is where the story gets a little deep. At 13 weeks pregnant, our surrogate terminated our pregnancy.
Mm.
Um,
Goodness.
she she had a few health concerns, which could have been dealt with and had a successful pregnancy, but that's not the direction she chose. I was still pregnant, and I successfully carried my pregnancy to 39 weeks. So I have a little guy now. He's 5.
Oh.
Yeah, a little Rocco.
Mhm.
And so that pregnancy was very high risk. And I get a lot of questions about, following, like, what did you do about the surrogate who terminated the
Mm.
pregnancy?
Yeah.
And really, just to not get into that too much,
Yeah.
I was pregnant with Rocco, with my baby, and that was where my energy focused.
Totally understand.
So, carried him to 39 weeks. It was an easy pregnancy, but I was very high risk. So a lot of appointments, a lot. But we had him. And then once we had him, we decided we wanted to be near family. So when he was 9 months old, we moved to upstate New York, which is
Mhm.
where I live now. And we thought we had one. So we know I can do it. Let's
Mhm.
try again.
Mhm.
And so um, I got pregnant again. And I actually had my third miscarriage at my son's first birthday party.
Mm. Sorry.
So we came back and said, okay, at what point are we just going to, really lean into the gratitude for the son, the
Yeah.
healthy little boy that we have, and um, you know, 4 losses, including the surrogate loss. That's a lot
Yeah.
for. We went through it together as a couple,
Yeah.
but for the female body, for my spirit, for my emotional health, mental health, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And once I had that last miscarriage, things really started to go south for me.
Mm.
I started to go into not a very healthy. Um, it was like I held on to all of that for so long, and then once we kind of made the decision and made peace with this is where we are, everything just kind of fell apart.
Mm.
And so that's when, I like to say I feel like I really searched for change out of desperation. I was really to the point that I can't continue to live like this. I can't continue to be this type of mom, wife, friend, daughter, all those things.
Mhm.
I really needed to deal with the trauma that I had been through.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
and so I went on the hunt, and, I really started to lean into fitness. And that's when things started to take a turn for the better. And so that road has really led me to where I am today with starting my own business and really leaning into serving and creating impact for other women who need to really come home and find themselves again.
Well, wow. I love obviously I knew parts of your story. I love that journey, and I think that it's so inspiring to hear that, what brought you to what you're doing now is what you want to be able to provide and help pave the way for other women, which I think is um so incredible. But I am curious just to comment and then ask a follow-up question on something that you had mentioned. First off, I as well have one child. I didn't have the difficulty that you did, but I definitely can relate to the fact that having one healthy child and leaning into that gratitude um is something that I think I like, that resonates with me as well, because same, like became a mom at almost 39. And, I think what you spoke about, your difficulties, you had a lot of tragedy in that, but I think that there's a lot of women that come to that part of trying to become a mother later or even earlier and have those circumstances. So I think that's great that you chose to put the energy in that, because that's almost like the blessing, right? Like the,
Mhm.
okay, this is the blessing, so this is where my energy is. So I commend you for that. Because I think that could have been incredibly hard. It could have gone a totally different way. Um, but I I wanted to ask, you said that you got into fitness and leaned into fitness. You said everything fell apart. Are you talking about totally from a health standpoint, healthy
Mhm.
living, mind, mental, spiritual? Are you talking about all that? And were you into fitness in some way? Because I know you always worked with athletes. And,
Mhm.
just tell me a little bit about that and what was like the big transformation? Like, did you dabble before, fall away from it, and then really commit yourself? Just talk about that.
Yeah, I have. When I lived in San Diego, I actually worked at San Diego State University in Division One athletics. My career has been in higher education, working with student athletes in their academic um, experience in college. And, I didn't grow up an athlete. I didn't grow up really involved in much in high school or, any time after. Um, I had previously, when I moved to San Diego, because I'm originally from Kansas, and so when I moved to San Diego, that was a big change for me. And I think change can kind of create. Um, I went to an unhealthy place then also,
Hmm.
and but the biggest change then was, you know, I became a fitness instructor, a group fitness instructor, and a spinning instructor. And so I had experience in some fitness,
Hmm.
but there wasn't a whole lot of, it didn't have to do a lot to become that spinning instructor or group
I
fitness
see. Yeah.
instructor,
Hmm.
And so when I got pregnant, when I started my journey of infertility and getting pregnant with my son, I was still a spinning instructor, but I couldn't, because I was a high risk pregnancy. I couldn't teach spinning anymore. So I taught off the bike,
Okay.
which was very challenging for me to do. And then once I had him, I just I didn't have enough tools in my toolbox to really come back to those habits that felt good when I created change the first time,
Hmm.
And then we moved across the country, and that's when things really, once I had that last miscarriage, moving from San Diego to upstate New York is different in so many ways.
Yeah.
Seasonally, it's different, and that affected me in more ways than I could have ever imagined.
Hmm.
Um, the winters here are very hard. They're very hard for me. And people will say, "Well, you're from Kansas," and I'm like, "Yeah, but the winters here are very different.
Yeah.
It's like eternal winter where I live here, and I came from eternal beach and sun, so it's a
Yeah.
very different, it's a
Yeah.
very different situation." And I lived in San Diego for, gosh, 16, 17 years,
Yeah.
so
So that's like the
it
other
really
end of the
became my home.
spectrum. Hmm.
It became my home. And, after having walked through my journey and living in a new city and having a new job, because I'm still working in higher education, and a new community, I had no family here. My husband's family is here, but that's not my family.
Hmm. Hmm.
It didn't feel like I had my people here, and I
Hmm.
was really lacking support. I was lacking community. I was lacking that human connection that I needed. I love people. I love
Hmm.
building relationships and connecting with other women, and that wasn't happening.
Hmm.
And I here in this specific town I live in, and my husband's family, they connect through food.
Hmm.
And so I started to kind of take part in that, and it's not it's heavier food.
Yep.
And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was starting to develop these habits that just were not serving me. I was not moving my body. I was starting to eat really unhealthy. I didn't have community support, friends. And I think that first year of living here, I was running on adrenaline.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
I was a new mom and I'm in a new city, and, I'm great with change. This is awesome.
Hmm.
And then once things started to slow down and the dust started to settle, and I started to realize some things started to reveal itself that I needed to heal with.
Yeah.
And still to this day,
Yeah.
I'm still healing. It's always a work in progress. Um, but that's really the journey. I didn't have a super extensive background in fitness or health or nutrition. Um, but when I moved here, that's when I started to, I'll never forget. I was with my husband. We were going to pick up pizza and we pulled over. He said, let's pull over in a parking lot. And he said, how unhappy are you?
Mm.
And it was that moment that I thought, hmm, okay, because I wasn't living in my full potential. And he
Yeah.
knew me at my best, when we were
Yeah.
in Southern California, and
Hmm.
he could see it, I could feel it. Um, so it was time to create change.
So that was the moment that I guess you leaned into that and kind of surrendered to it.
Yeah. I think I stopped resisting.
Yeah.
I stopped resisting,
Yeah.
and I've really been a survivor my whole life.
Hmm.
And so I think I just go into survival mode, but now it was, we can't stay in that space anymore.
Yeah.
And a lot of that I think came from, there's no way around the storm. There's no way around your storm, whatever that looks like for you. And I needed to figure out a way to create and navigate and like shift within what my storm was and come out on the other side. I'm a mom now,
Hmm.
right? Like this was all I
Yeah.
ever wanted and prayed for and spent thousands of dollars on, and then I ended up having him naturally. But, it was just, it was like I want to give my son a childhood he doesn't have to recover from,
Yes.
because that was me.
Yeah.
I I've had to spend my life recovering from my childhood, and I knew that the work had to start here. It had to start here, and it had to start here.
Yeah.
And the way that I did that was by pressing play on my first workout. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I didn't know the
Mm.
extent. I didn't know the road that would lead down.
Mm.
Um, but it was just I had to take that first step. And I knew, because I had been a fitness instructor in the past, that if you press play on that first workout or show up to the gym for that first time, it's I I just said this today, like move a muscle, change a thought. And
Yeah.
that was what I needed. That was what I needed to do.
That's so inspiring, motivating.
Mhm.
I love the story. I think the story also resonates with a lot of women that have gone down similar path in terms of change. I also think, what I'd like to highlight is some of the things you said about moving and not having your people. I mean, that like there are so many people that are going through that right now. So many people that are lonely. I mean, I think I just heard a tidbit on the news that it's like 52% of Americans say that they're lonely. Like we're in
Mhm.
that space. Obviously, we just came out of a huge, period where people were isolated and things like that. But normal changes in your life of moving, changing circles, changing jobs, changing careers, starting a business, not having that everyday office that you go into, like all of those changes does create that lack of community and having your people and having support and certainly moving like
Yeah.
that was one of the things for me just to share like I'm born and raised Jersey girl, like I've been all over the country, but like when it all comes down to it to move, that'd be really hard for me to like
Mhm.
leave, and I understand the reasons why if you meet somebody and you get married, like to decide to go to a place where it's at least one of you are from and have
Yeah.
that village around you, have some family around you, but that's tough.
Well, I was just going to say, I came from a broken home. I was born
Mhm.
and raised in Kansas. Parents were divorced at a very young
Yeah.
age. So when we were talking about where do we move,
Mhm.
my mom is in Kansas, my dad is in Texas. I was an only child until I was 18. I don't have this big immediate family the way
Yeah.
that my husband does. And so for us, it was this no brainer as far
Mhm.
as what kind, I speak of wanting my son, because I still to this day struggle with him being an only child. And what do I want for him? And when we would talk about that, it was what are your best memories as a child? Cousins and
Yeah.
grandparents.
Yeah.
And so that's where we went. We came here because this is the area that could give that to my son.
Yeah.
And he's thriving here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's another thread, like we share that, right? The only child, like
Mhm.
that's a thing
Mhm.
for Myself as well. I only have one sibling. We have a very small family. Although all my family is here, my niece and nephew are much older than my son. And he doesn't have siblings. So, like, wanting to have that unity, have them around.
Mhm.
Yes, they're a different life phase, but how can, we create that? And truthfully, I'm sure you have this as well. We're very blessed in the fact that we do have a lot of friends that are like family, that are like, I think some of the kids that have grown up together, of the friends of mine, their children, they call each other like god cousins, like they're not really
Mhm.
cousins, but it's
Yeah.
like, instead of godchild, it's like god cousins.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's super important for kids, and I totally resonate with that and wanting to give that to your son, me as well. But talk to me about, your whole wellness coaching practice. I love the fact that, what you're creating. I love the fact that you said when you started, hitting play and getting into fitness, you didn't really know what it was going to look like, what you were creating. And I think for entrepreneurs, that's very common. It sometimes hangs up entrepreneurs where they want to have it all figured out.
Mm.
But it's better to have just, I know where I'm going. I don't exactly know what it's going to be or what it's going to look like. It's kind of like a fuzzy target. So, talk to me about what you've created and
Mhm.
who you serve and what your vision for that is,
Yeah.
at least where you
You
are
know,
right now.
yeah. Where I am now, and it's so being an entrepreneur is it's got its highs and its lows for sure.
Mhm.
So I think that living in my purpose, which this is where I have found my purpose in creating that impact. And what I've learned is being in community with other women when I pressed play, because I actually joined my coach. I have my own coach also.
Mhm.
And when I joined her, I was opened up to this beautiful community. And again, wasn't quite sure what it was. And I'm like, I don't know.
Mhm.
And I just joined it. I joined as a client because that's where I was at the time. And when I started pressing play and connecting with these women, and everything is virtual, and interestingly enough, I enrolled in my community in January of 2020.
Mm.
So I
Mhm.
don't believe anything happens by accident.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know where I would be today if I didn't have that community headed into what we all experienced
Yeah,
through COVID, the
yeah.
isolation, being alone.
Mhm.
I didn't feel that sense of loneliness because I had enrolled with my coach and the community was so close knit and supportive and it was all women and we shared this space virtually that we would have had to have done virtually anyway
Right.
because of where we were headed as a society. And it was my saving grace.
Mm.
It was building these relationships and we would get on Zooms together and work out together. And it was this beautiful thing where I had people in my life start to say, I'm seeing a change in you.
Mm.
What are you doing? And I thought, huh, okay, this is working. I'm feeling better. And it was a few months in, about 6 months in, and my husband said to me, we were on a walk, and he said to me, I just want to tell you that I can see a change in you. And he said, whatever you're doing is working, and I support you in this. My husband's wonderful. And
That's
I said, okay, and when someone else sees that in you, it's like this extra, like, oh,
yeah.
okay, this is working. Because I think sometimes, we question our own experience and like and at the time my goal was to at the time it was I wanted to feel better in my clothes. I
Mhm.
wanted to release some weight. I wanted to have better nutrition habits. I wanted to be around women who were headed in the same direction.
Mhm.
And so once my husband noticed, I had some friends noticed, I thought, why am I not offering what is changing my life
Yeah.
so that other women can have the same? And what I loved most about what I was doing is everything was virtual and I could do everything from home.
Mhm.
And I think that's where I was able to create some consistency.
Mm.
because I didn't have to go find a group fitness class. I was on that timeline. I didn't have to get, to the gym on my lunch break. And that's where I was finding that I couldn't stay consistent. And
Mhm.
I was like literally like YouTubing workouts. What can I do today? Getting on the treadmill and doing endless amounts of cardio. And I wasn't finding I wasn't seeing results, what I was really looking for.
Mhm.
And so once I started doing these design programs and doing it with other women, and I'm like, why am I not offering this? Because it is convenient. Let's give women these tools and this opportunity, especially moms,
Mhm.
right? To to be able to show up for themselves. Because I think in motherhood, as much as we want it and as beautiful as it is, it's really hard.
Yeah.
It is really hard to put yourself at the top of the to-do list.
Yeah.
It is really hard for you to create that time because you just want to pour and to be honest, I felt like I was parenting out of trauma and it wasn't healthy,
Mhm.
and everything was the end of the world,
Yeah. Yeah.
and every cry, every decision, because I have one shot at this. I have one
Mhm.
chance to get it right. And so I lost myself in all of that. And when I started to find myself, I wanted to give that gift to other women,
Yeah.
because whether or not you walked through an experience similar to mine,
Mhm.
being a parent is hard.
Yep. Yep.
So I wanted to be able to offer that. And so there it started. I started inviting women into my own community, and it just started this amazing ripple effect of wellness and of confidence, and women creating that space for themselves. And it just, and I'm like, this is it, and I would
Mhm.
get this like fire in my belly, and I would get these messages from women of, this is what I did today. And I even now, when I get these messages, that feeling is still there and the fire gets stronger and the passion gets stronger. So I'm like, I know I'm, headed down the right path. And I choose to serve women because women need women.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Women need to support each other. And I didn't know what that looked like until I started this community and actually joined my accountability community with my coach. Um, it's a really special place when you're lifting each other up. And, my human experience allows a space for women to feel safe.
Mhm.
And I think women sit in silence with infertility.
Yeah.
It's a very lonely place. It's hard. And I want to create that space for them where they feel connected to people. Um, Whatever their journey turned out to be, or if they are in the process of, I want them to have a space to come to and feel connected to other women who are also working on finding themselves, creating that space, and really leveling up their day-to-day life. So that's why just women. There are I don't, it's that's who I serve, because that's who I can connect with, and that's who I can lead.
So I love that. I just and that was one of my questions. Obviously, I know that you worked with male and female athletes, and
Mhm.
and that's your has been your role at university and even now, but working with both sexes. So that was one of my questions. But I do love that, and I also think that the community, like, that is a big component right now, that
Mhm.
in all spaces, whether it's business, whether it's women's wellness, whether it's any niche industry or any niche interest, it's like those community spaces are what people are wanting,
Yeah.
thriving, those communities where people can lean in and ask a question, get support. All those things are really important. So how do you do that? If people join your community,
Mhm.
are there different types of programs? Is it some kind of different feed? Is it custom? Does it depend? What does that look like right now, and where do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think, I'm partnered with a company who has designed workouts, designed programs. And really those we fit individual, they're individual based. So depending on what you're looking for, what your goals are, we talk through that.
Mhm.
We have that one-on-one conversation, and let's talk. Like, where do you want to go? What is your vision? What do you want her to look like? How do you want
Mhm.
her to feel? And we pick programming, we pick fitness based off of that, but we also talk about nutrition. And one of my nutrition is what will get you there the quickest, right? But that tends to be the thing that people struggle with the most. So I'm a big believer in simple nutrition.
Mhm.
I do not like to cook. I
Mhm.
do not like to be in the kitchen. So I'm very like healthy, simple, and you have children, like how do you do it with
Yeah.
a family, all
Yeah.
those things.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I'm most passionate about is mindset,
Mm.
because what I have learned through my own journey, what I have learned is that your mindset is where it starts, it's where it begins, and where it ends. And, if you don't work on this, the rest doesn't, it matters, but this is the most important thing to change.
Yeah.
And so in my groups, I run monthly accountability groups and we theme them. And, so like July is going to be happiness habits.
Mhm.
And we're going to work on fitness, nutrition, and we're going to work on creating morning routines
Mhm.
and creating those um, habits that are sustainable. I'm a big believer in one step at a time. I think you master one thing at a time and then we habit stack. Because, women really, it's interesting. I'll give you an example. I had a woman who checked into the group yesterday and I replied to her check in and I said, consistency queen, right? Because she's there every day. And she said to me, if I don't stay consistent in this group, I fall off track.
Yeah.
And I said to her, you're here. You've been here. You need to let her go.
Mhm.
Let that version of you go because you're not her anymore.
Yeah.
But we get stuck in these like thoughts that don't help us work towards our goals, and we get stuck in these patterns. And so my whole mission is for women to believe in themselves and to understand and be grateful and recognize the growth that they have, right? A lot of times we stay in that space that we've grown out of because it's where we are here.
Yeah.
And so that's what we work on. And it's constant every day, right? It's like mindset work every day. And that's what I do every month. We focus on a theme every month and then we show up together for that month. And we talk like I'll do, special like tonight we're doing a vision board workshop, which is going to
Mhm.
be really fun. But last month I did a hormone one-on-one um workshop where I brought in a woman who is a certified she's certified in sync she's sync certified, talking about women's health and hormones and how they impact. So I like to bring in education also because that's what it's about, empowering ourselves to be able to make these decisions.
That's great. So you bring in subject matter experts. It
Yeah.
sounds like you really curate for
Mhm.
a bespoke custom program depending on the goals, which is great, and
Yeah.
hitting all those areas. And as you were talking about the mindset piece, I just want to say that I 100% agree with you. And I think mindset is really the key to everything. Like,
Mhm.
yes, as humans, any behavior change, right? And a lot of this stuff, so much goodness in what you said, one step at a time. Like, as human beings, whether it's wellness, whether it's fitness, whether it's business, whether whatever it is, if we do not get this right, it's just, this is like the brain that drives, or the engine that drives the
Mhm.
car. Like, it doesn't matter what you do externally. It's like, it's not gonna necessarily churn and sink in. The way I just like describe it is, the gears don't fit together good, like.
Mhm.
And I think that's everything. But I also, what I love about what you said is step by step, because I know even myself, I think that's humans in general. We tend to not recognize those small steps that consistently going in that direction will get us there, right? It's like, why can't we? And that's in our head. That's definitely
Right.
in our head. Um, so support to be able to do that, and practices that help us remember that, accountability groups that remind us of that and shift that perspective, and help us train ourselves to be better at doing that. I think is the key to everything, right? Any kind of
Yeah.
it. And the science says so too. Like
Yeah.
behavior change, it cannot be this all or nothing. That's something I struggled with for a long time in all areas of
Mhm.
my life. It was like all or nothing. Like you got to give yourself the credit for the progress you're making. Otherwise, then you're going to give up.
Right. And it's like the person you're growing into,
Yeah.
like, get to know her,
Yeah.
recognize her,
Yeah.
and just to be very clear, I am not a doctor. I am
Yeah.
not but what I share from is my human experience.
Mhm.
And I am constantly, I'm enrolled right now in a mindset course that's a year long, with uh, she's amazing. And we talk a lot about, and I bring that stuff into my group,
Right. So,
and back to what you were thinking, your thoughts. So one of the things I practice with my community is you'll have a circumstance and you create a thought around that circumstance, which then creates a feeling,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
From that feeling is where your actions come from. So
mhm.
let's think about what's going on here first, because we want to have some different thoughts that create different actions, positive actions that give you the results that create the change you're desiring.
Yeah.
And so I pour into this community. It is my everything. I love it so much to connect with these women. It gives me life, and I think it gives them life,
Sure.
and it's women who are getting to know each other from all over the United States.
Yeah.
Some we may never meet,
That's right.
but it's just this amazing space where it's such an inclusive space, and it doesn't matter age, it doesn't matter size, it none of that matters. We are
Yeah.
coming together and creating these habits, and it feels like such a positive space to be in.
Yeah, and I think that's also so much for women, such a great, I mean, in all people, but for women in
Mhm.
general, just because of all the challenges, being a mother, being selfless, not making the time for the self-care, not making yourself, a priority, all of those things that women, especially moms, like just battle with,
Yeah.
that's needed even more, right? Is it's something that's been a gap for so long. And I also think, and I forgot to go back to this, but when you were describing your journey and talking about, doing things online and finding different things, and instead of having to find a place to go work out or find a place to do fitness, like I think that also having that diversity of that different options and different entry
Mhm.
points is so critical, because there's so many barriers to the thought of, how do I start this if I can't afford a gym, or I don't have anybody to watch the kids to go, like, let's, all the different scenarios. Not everybody is with their partner. Some are single moms, and like just all of these things. So I think that, being able to know and have access to and be offered different entry points into that and different strategies is also so needed for women, because
Yeah,
otherwise you feel
absolutely.
like I can't do it.
Mhm. Well, because the way that I for my own fitness, I get up early in the morning. I've
Hmm.
created that morning routine,
Hmm.
and to me it is such a special time. And there will be women who come to me and say, my baby is 4 months old. I can't create that morning routine. That's not the season you're in.
Right.
Let's talk
Right.
about where you are, right? And so
Right.
that's like meeting women where they're at,
Yes.
is key. And to be able to do that in the home,
Yeah.
um, gives them that permission. My
Yeah.
son is with me all the time when I work out,
Yeah.
and that's, to me, I feel like I am showing him the way,
And modeling that for them. Yeah.
modeling that for him. And my
Yeah.
husband, same. My husband, um, I call it a gym. We have like a space above our garage, right, where we have some equipment. But really, I started in my dingy, dark basement
Hmm.
with a set of 5-pound dumbbells and 8-pound dumbbells, and that was it. And I did that for the first, gosh, months.
Wow.
And, you grow and you
Yeah.
evolve. This is not what it looked like on day one for me. And
Yeah.
that's the hope, is that these women are able to be in a routine that helps them evolve into feeling their best. And I
Yep.
think sometimes as moms or women in general who work full time, we forget what it feels like to feel good,
Oh, yes. Mhm.
because we're just
Yes.
not in that space.
Yes.
And everyone deserves that,
Yeah.
right? Everyone deserves to feel good.
Yeah.
Now, you got to work for it,
Yeah.
right? It's not just going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think being in the home and giving them different entry points, that's a really great way to say it, is key.
Yeah. I love that. I know that there is a lot of attention right now on women's wellness in society, social media, in the media, especially in more recent years, and I think that's great to see. But why do you think, besides what you've already shared, like why do you think women's wellness is an important topic that needs more awareness? I mean, I know we need what we need, but why does it need more awareness?
I think that fitness and wellness in general for many years has been focused around men.
Mm,
Um, Women, I've heard this line from a woman that I recently listened to her podcast, and she said women aren't small men. We have to start to look at women's experience different. And I think being able to, in our human experience, our bodies, our hormones, all of those things are very different from men. We operate different, and there's some crazy statistic. I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it's like 97% of fitness has been researched and created around men.
mm,
That's not serving women.
no.
So when you talk about things like cycle syncing and hormones, and those things need to be important to women. There's needs to be some education, and we need to start to tailor how women can get results for women, not based off of what we know for men. And this is a very up and coming, this hormone health and cycle
Hmm.
syncing and all these things
Hmm.
are sort of new.
Yeah.
And as I'm learning, I think, wow, I think these are things I should have learned in human sexuality in
Yeah.
seventh grade,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's not what we were learning.
Yeah.
And so, as I'm learning, I like to, bring in other experts and share this information. And I think women need their own space because we are different than men.
Hmm.
And my husband is amazing. He's an amazing father, amazing husband, but we have different, very different roles.
Of course. Yeah.
And that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Women's bodies are different, our roles are different, our experience is different. Why are we forcing something that isn't made or meant for us? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think it's something, obviously, it's so apparent right now as you're saying it, but I hadn't thought about it like that. But I'm even, reflecting on some of my own journey of, there was a time in my life that I was, single and not married and was in the gym every day. And that was my routine. That was my stage of life. I was in the best shape of my life.
Mhm.
And then, things change because your life changes. And then trying to go back to that after having a child.
Mm-mm.
Um, and, uh, and no disrespect, but a young fitness trainer at the gym who's telling me to get down on the floor and do burpees where I haven't done anything for 8 years, like literally, except for take care of a kid and walk to my job, off the bus in New York City. That's it. Like,
Mhm.
so and again, no disrespect, but not his ignorance, but almost like that's what he's taught. And that's definitely more not taking into consideration a woman that had her whole abdomen cut open to have a baby,
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and where's that ab strength? Like, so
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely agree with you on that point. And I would agree we're different. So why not have more awareness to build stuff that's customized to women? Because
Absolutely.
that could be why. And here's another point that I hadn't thought of. Maybe that's why so many women are so have an aversion to fitness, because it doesn't feel like it fits them. So more power to you to bring that to light.
Let's go.
Uh,
Yeah, I, I've been learning a lot about women's hormones and health. And it's interesting, men have this cycle that's a 24-hour cycle,
hmm
right? It just same cycle every 24 hours. And women, our cycle is broken up into 4 phases of our cycle, and we need to be responding to those phases in a different way. And you know, I or our hormones, we need to be eating more protein, we need to be
hmm
eating more healthy fats, and I think sometimes we look at eating less as the answer. I don't believe in restriction.
hmm
I believe in giving the body, fueling the body what it needs to respond. And I
hmm
just think it's different for men and women. And why are we not giving women what will serve them in the best way to get the results they're looking for and to feel their best?
Yeah,
So that's my mission.
that's awesome. So, making changes for your health and wellness it can definitely be overwhelming for many
Mhm.
people. And I'd love your thoughts on just some simple things that we can do if we want to start to get going. Where do you start?
Ah, so many places to start.
hmm
If you want to get going, and I'm talking like free, free ways to get
hmm
going, I would say you can start with sleep and hydration. Those
hmm
are two key components to your health. And, I think, and I'm guilty of this too. Like one of my goals is to have my phone put down by 10 p.m. and to get a good solid night's sleep. We're so distracted.
Yes.
We're so
Yes.
distracted. And I think sleep hygiene is one of the things that needs to be at the top of everybody's priority list. And it is creating a sleep schedule. And that means going to bed roughly at the same time, getting up roughly at the same time, no matter what day of the week it is.
hmm
Creating that for your body is key. Sleep hygiene, and I would say hydration. Hydration is important for so many reasons, but for your energy level, your concentration, your mood, for weight loss, it is key. So I would say those are 2 places that you can start right away. And just today in my group, on Thursday, we're doing a hydration challenge, right? And every Thursday, like, what was the amount of ounces you drank last week? Can you up it this week? Like,
hmm
and so it's just little simple things like that that we do together, and we get a little bit of like friendly competition, right? Like, and but those are 2 things you can do that you have complete control over, unless you're a new mom, right? So if you're getting up in the middle of the night, that's a
hmm
different thing.
hmm
Um, but if you are in a season of life that you can create that consistent sleep pattern, you need to do that. And you need to Saturdays and Sundays too. I'm not saying, I do rest more on my rest days and the weekends, but I really do try and stick with that specific bedtime and wake time. And then the hydration. I try to drink at least 100 to 120 ounces of water a day. Rule of thumb is half your body weight in ounces,
Yeah, I
but
was going
again,
to
that
ask you
depends
that
on.
formula.
Yeah, but it depends, how much are you moving? Are you sweating? Or, like that sort of varies. But I would say to stay hydrated, you need to at least drink that much water. That's like
Half your
basic.
body weight in ounces, right?
Yeah, that's like
And what is that? Here's a question because I think there's a lot of understanding about this.
yeah.
What counts as water? Water only?
Um, well, that's an interesting question because we're like, well, if you drink coffee, if you drink your pre-workout and there's water in it,
uh-huh.
for me, water is water, right? That's how I view it. I'm not the I'm not the defining sayer in that, but that's what we do in my group. And I don't count, like, if I get an iced Americano, I'm not going to count that as, which I
Right,
do often,
right.
but I don't count that as my in my
That's
water
in
intake.
addition to your water intake, and that's what you do. And I think, and again, we're not doctors or whatever
No, no,
here,
yes.
but agreed. Like you can't count a half your body weight in coffee as your hydration, right? Like,
I mean, I wish we could.
darn it.
I know.
What are your thoughts on it? Just I'm going to ask this now. What are your thoughts on some of the things that um and I don't want to characterize it any way, but there's a lot of information out there about um, like the added things. So like now there's alkaline water, there's water with potassium in it. There's something called Element that has
Mhm,
potassium and I think
mhm,
sodium in it and other things. What are your thoughts on that? And I know you follow simple nutrition, but I'm wondering, like,
mhm.
do you support those things? Is it preference or is it just straight simple water?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a tough one. I would say I for me, I drink electrolytes in my water. I
Okay.
think Element is a
Okay.
great company.
Hmm.
I support that. Like my mom has super low sodium levels.
Hmm.
So we add electrolytes to her water. Um, but I think there's a clear distinction between drinking Gatorade, which I do not support,
Hmm.
and choosing something that is a healthier option.
Yep.
um, when I think about, in the morning when I do my pre-workout, I'll mix electrolytes in there if I've been traveling, or if I didn't get a great night's sleep, or if maybe I didn't meet my water goal.
Yeah.
I will add that in there, but I don't count that as water intake. But I do absolutely believe in some of those things that can help us meet our goals. And but I have some strong feelings about what it is that you are. We don't need to get into that, but
Yep.
I don't want to.
Totally understand.
But I do feel very, very strongly about what you're putting in your body matters.
Hmm.
I'm That to me matters most.
Yeah.
The
Understood.
quality of what of your nutrition and what you're drinking and eating is, to me, is hands down the most important.
Yeah. So really you've mentioned it, but your philosophy on nutrition, simple nutrition is just really understanding. I'm assuming based on your comments you made, you could elaborate, but whole foods,
Mhm.
talk to me a little bit more detail about that, your
Yeah, it's just
philosophy.
interesting because it's so simple, but it's so hard for people to do.
Hmm.
And I really operate in two different arenas. I work with people on volume-based eating, but understanding what that looks like. If you eat in volume because that serves you and your goals, we need to understand, though, what should your plate look like
Hmm.
when you're putting food on it, right?
Hmm.
Should it be 25% protein, 50% protein, how much vegetables, fiber-filled carbs? Um, so that's important. And I also operate in sort of a macros based, very
Yeah,
simple
I was gonna
formula,
ask you that.
but to help people with portions and
Hmm.
to understand where you fall and how much you need, is key. Um, I don't enjoy the kitchen
Yeah.
at all.
Hmm.
I'm not, I keep it super simple. We talk about a protein, a vegetable, a fiber filled carb, healthy fats, and I create meals out of that. I love prepping food. So I sometimes will do a buffet style where for the week on a Sunday, I might
Yep.
make two proteins. I'll do a sheet pan of veggies.
Hmm.
I'll make quinoa, brown rice, whatever. And then I'll create meals out of
Based
those.
on those components, yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't have to be complicated. Really, food prep is making extra,
Yep.
you know? Here's an example. Monday night, I made potatoes. I made like French fries
Hmm.
out of my potatoes. And last night I made a frittata and I put the leftover vegetables and potatoes in that. And then this morning, that's what I had for breakfast. So it's like,
So
I
it's
don't like
eggs,
to spend a
vegetables,
lot of,
potatoes. That's awesome.
yeah, I don't like to spend a lot of time cooking. I
Yeah.
don't like to spend a lot of time prepping. And that's what I work with my community on is how can we do this, whether, you're single and you're cooking just for you? Do you have a 5-year-old who refuses to eat anything you make? Like it's the whole, do you have a bigger family? How do you prep when there are multiple
Yeah.
people? So it's really simplicity is the key to success in my
Yeah.
world. When we overcomplicate things, that's when it starts to feel a little bit like when we feel defeated that we can't get it done.
Yeah.
So I'm Super simple is my philosophy for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And I also, my son was an athlete for a good part of his life, so how to cook in kind of in that way. And I would do the components because you got to have the protein, you got to have the veggies,
Mhm,
and then whatever grains. I love that, and just mixing it up
mhm,
for
mhm,
myself because I like to cook, but I don't have a lot of time. So I don't like to cook when I don't have a lot of time. Like if I had a day and like oh, okay, well, I can whatever, but the
mhm,
routine, and I'm sure a lot of moms, a lot of women can relate to this. Who has the time? Like every night, like there's people like I still have to feed these people, and so I love that component idea where you can mix and match and all of that. But I
yeah.
agree, simplicity, I think is the key.
Yeah, and when you work, if you have a full-time job and you have children and you have, a partner and w you're exhausted.
Yeah,
You're exhausted.
yeah,
So how can you like make things easier and how can you fill your own cup in order to serve everyone else? And that's part of why I'm such a big proponent of morning routines
hmm,
because in the morning, that's the only time no one needs me.
yeah,
And it's beautiful,
yeah,
and it's quiet,
yeah,
and it's peaceful, and I can, like, listen I can get quiet and listen and meditate and journal and move my body and all the things that help to set up my day so
yeah,
that when the storm comes and life comes, I can just navigate right through it in a
yeah,
healthier way,
yeah.
and I think women don't do that enough because they don't give themselves the permission,
Yeah, and
you know?
I totally agree with that. I also think going back to the food, it's that doing all of that prep then sets you up for success
Yes.
because one thing that I know myself, and I only came to understand that in the last 5 years, it's like if it's prepared and it's in the fridge, I'll eat it.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
they'll eat it. But it's if you have nothing prepared and it's like, what are we gonna have? Oh my God,
Mhm.
let's just order. And then that
I
becomes that
know.
unhealthy routine. And ordering out, like that's something that you definitely have higher fat, higher, all those different
Yeah.
things besides the
What
cost.
oils are they yeah, it's
Yeah, but having those things prepared, and also why I like the components is because you could change it up. It's not just the same thing. It's like, okay, you have chicken, but you can do chicken a million different ways, and the
that's right.
veggies you could do a million
Exactly.
different ways
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So the mix and match
Yeah.
thing is
Key.
like
Yes.
life changing.
Yeah, and we talk about too, a simple thing like, where do you put your fruits and vegetables in your refrigerator?
Yeah,
Do you put them in the drawers and shut them
yeah,
and they're not visual to you?
hmm,
Right? So just little things like that that you can create these tiny little adjustments and tweaks that might make a difference in your choices, when you
yeah,
come home from a long day and you're like, "Ugh, I don't feel like doing anything."
yep. The prep stuff is so
Mhm.
key.
Prep is huge.
So key.
Yeah.
I'm curious as we're rounding out our time together. I just wanted to get your takes quickly on, I mean, you've mentioned some of these things, but just um some of these alternative methods that are more
Mhm.
holistic, just thoughts, opinion, obviously meditation you mentioned, but just meditation, breath work, hypnosis, yoga, tai chi, aromatherapy, like just give
Mhm.
me your feedback on those kind of holistic, kind of alternative things.
Big fan. Big
Yeah.
fan. Um, I'm a big fan because I know, in my own experience, I have used acupuncture,
Mm-hmm.
therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently in therapy,
Mm-hmm.
to work through some of the trauma I've experienced, and I'm a big believer in the more tools you can have in your toolbox, to reach in and pull from, the more success you'll have.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever that looks like for you, if it's serving you, if, meditation and journal and podcasts and reading and, um, Reiki, all of those things, if they are helping you reach your fullest potential, I am on board and in support of.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. Somebody will say, well, I have Peloton. I can't do that. Or, I belong to this gym. I can't go and do that. And I'm like, yeah, but don't you want all the tools in your toolbox?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you can do yoga and you can lift weights. You
Mm-hmm.
can, get acupuncture and, do
Hmm.
meditation. You can do all the things. And I
Hmm.
think that's so beautiful that we have the option to fill our toolbox with all of the tools that help us become the best version of ourselves. So I'm a big, big fan of anything that's serving you.
Yeah, and I think, the different modalities is something that I think is important for people to consider. Like therapy may work for some people, but other people
Mhm.
maybe more hypnosis or NLP or just,
Absolutely.
something more on the unconscious level, and the meditation and breath work that, can be a daily practice, but it can also be an ability to process things and process traumas and things like that. But I would agree. I like that because I also think it's not one way. It's not like a one size fits all. People can try things to see if it serves them. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, then they can try something else.
Yeah, and I think too, giving yourself permission to edit what that looks like along the way
Hmm.
is so important.
Yeah.
And that's why I love what we do, is because every month we're doing something different. We're doing something every month that kind of changes things up, and you can see how it feels for you, and there's just so many options. And I think, that is key, is giving yourself the permission. If something's not working, change it.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And a big thing I think it's important that I wanna say in response to that I've learned in more recent years is I think part of the all or nothing
Mhm.
thinking, that's something that I've suffered from, is being okay with saying, you know what, this isn't working, so I'm just done with that. It doesn't mean I failed it. I'm moving on to something else. Like, this didn't work. I tried it, this didn't work. So now I'm going to try something else that may work better. I think it's good to have that attitude because you don't have to give up and you don't have to feel like, oh, I failed. Maybe that just didn't fit,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
So,
I said just yesterday, I women say this a lot, and it's like, I fell off.
mm,
I fell off. And I'll say, well, talk to me about what does that look like?
yeah,
Well, this weekend
yeah,
I did X, Y, and Z. And I said, okay, so it's 2 days.
yeah,
You're not starting over.
yeah,
My, I think sometimes we're just unfolding. We're
yeah,
learning as we go, and we're
yes,
unfolding in who we need to become. And
yes,
we need to stop being so all or nothing
yeah,
and be flexible in how we reach our goals. And, it's again back to that mindset of, it is such the sense of failure
hmm,
when everything is not lined up perfectly. And
perfect. Yeah,
and sometimes I'll respond to a woman who will say, oh my God, I've been terrible about checking in. I had a woman this week, my niece is in town and I've done nothing. And I said, okay, or you can, that's a sentence in your head.
mm-hmm.
Or you can
Could
say,
reframe that.
yeah, I'm the woman who's learning to navigate when
Hmm.
different seasons come into my life. And what can you control right now?
Right,
Right? Like, identify the things that you can control, drinking your water, trying to get to bed on time, getting outside, going for a walk. It
right.
doesn't mean you have to, you know, work out, but it's not, there are so many things that define health and wellness,
Yeah,
right? And it's not
yes,
just working out. And
yes,
so it's like, control the things you can and stop putting
yes,
this narrative that you're failing when it doesn't look exactly the way you think it
yes.
should.
Yeah, control the
Yeah.
controllables and
Yeah.
definitely mind your mindset.
Yes.
Well, this has been so much fun. We could talk all day about
Oh,
this.
I don't want to stop. I'm here.
But what I want to do is we will put in the show notes for everyone, but just tell everybody how, to get in touch with you. We're going to put all your information. How can they get in touch with you and hear more about what you
Yeah.
offer?
Yeah, because everything is run through social media. The different platforms I use are Instagram and Facebook.
Excellent.
So just my name for Facebook, Jessica Amerosa. And then I think my handle for Instagram is Jessica_Amerosa.
And we're going to put that link in the show
Yeah.
notes. So
Yeah.
if you
So
are wanting to get in touch, go ahead and look at
yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
thank you so much, Jessica. I had a
Thank you
blast
for
today.
having me. This has been wonderful.
Same here.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Finding the Upside, and we'll see you next time.